Hi, welcome to Art on the Brain. I'm Kelly Drake, and you may have seen some of my videos about Daniel Smith Luminescent interference colors. The interference colors are special in that they have a luminescent quality, and they're very beautiful paints, but they only work on darker colors. If you put them on white, they really don't show up. So I was really interested in these other luminescent paints that Daniel Smith has, including Duochrome and the iridescent paints. And I realized before I was really using these words interchangeably, luminescent, iridescent, pearlescent, and to a lot of people those are the same thing, but to Daniel Smith there's something quite different. And so I bought a couple tubes of each, and we're going to give them a try and compare them to the interference colors and see how they do. Okay, for this demonstration I do want to show how the different luminescent paints look over white and black. But also I have an interest in seeing what they look like over other colors as well. So I'm using some very nice, deep, rich colors from Daniel Smith because that's my favorite kind of paint and that's what I have a palette handy with, and I'm just putting some of the colors down that I like to use the most so that I know what the luminescent paint looks like when I use these colors. So I have from the left white, black, olive green, cerulean blue, an ultramarine violet, a quinacridone violet, anthracnone red. This is a quinacridone orange I'm putting down here, and then a quinacridone gold. I'm just going to clean up that edge a little bit. Now since these colors dry a little more pale after you put them down, I'm going to go ahead and put a second coat on because I want the colors to be as dark of a value and as high in intensity as I can get them, because I think that the luminescent colors show up better that way. And that'll give me a better way to compare the different kinds of luminescent colors and see what they do. So as you can see, the second coat makes a really big difference in how rich these colors show up. So now I'm starting out with the interference colors. These are the colors. If you haven't seen my other videos, I have a video about interference paints, a couple of those, and I will put a link up above. And then I also have a video about what the interference paints do on black watercolor ground. And so first I'm starting with this interference blue. And the interference paints are a little different than the other luminescent paints in that when you put them on right at first, they do look a little bit milky. But when they dry, a lot of that milky quality goes away and they just look luminescent. So now I want to use a pattern because I think you see a lot more contrast with the pattern over the other color, and it just gives you a better feel for what this does over the regular watercolor paint as well as over black and white. Interference colors are very distinct in that over white they really don't show up at all. Over black you can really see what color you're looking at. You can see that that's an interference blue. And over other colors you could still see that blue, especially when you look at it in different lights, and it has that luminescent quality to it. This is interference lilac, one of my favorite interference colors, especially for what it does over the quinacridone violet and the ultramarine violet. Really makes those colors pop and makes a beautiful combination. So I'm going to do the same thing I did above with just some solid color over the top and just see what it does and how it changes these colors below. This lilac doesn't look quite as milky as the blue when it goes on. You could see a little more of the lilac color. Both colors, when they dry, you can see the luminescence and you can see their native color a lot better. Now, as you can see with the quinacridone lilac on the white, you really don't hardly see it at all. But then over the black it really pops, and then over all the colors, or most of the colors, you can see it quite well. And especially when you move the paper and see the light change over it, that iridescence really comes through. And as I said, this is one of my favorite iridescent, or I shouldn't say iridescent, luminescent colors that I've played with so far. And over the yellow, you don't see it quite so well, but sometimes that's kind of nice. Okay, now for the iridescent colors, I bought it's an Iridescent Jade, which is actually a really nice green. And it's a little different from the interference colors. You could see that you can actually see the green color over the white, although it's not a strong color, but you can see it and it does luminesce. And over the other colors, it's actually a little bit more opaque than the interference color. And that green really shows through. The other colors don't show through quite as well as with the interference paint. So now you can really see that green well with the pattern, and it shows up nicely. So if you're looking for something that is a little bit more opaque and you're not going to worry about whether it's going to show up or not, this is a great color, this Iridescent Jade. And it's not going to change a lot according to the colors below it. It's going to keep pretty true to that green. Of course, you're going to get a little warmer or a little cooler feel to it depending on what you paint it over. Now for my Iridescent Ruby. Iridescent Ruby, after trying it, is not my favorite color, but some people may like it. It's a little bit of a mauve color, which is not one of my favorites. I was hoping it was going to be a little more like a quinacridone violet, or have a little more of a blue violet tone to it rather than a red violet, I guess. It does show up very well on the white, which is nice. That could definitely come in handy, and shows up equally well on the black. And then just depending on what color you're going over, you get different qualities, different levels of success here depending on how well that kind of mauve color looks over the other colors. As you can see, you could barely see it over the olive green, but it shows up well over the blue and the violet and the quinacridone violet. It's pretty subtle over the red and shows up really well over the yellow. So it just depends what you want to use it for. Now for the duochrome colors. These are really interesting to me. As you can see on the palette, as you move it, you could see the two colors coming through there on that Cabo blue. I'm going to put a little more out of the tube here so that I can get some denser color. And doing the same thing, trying it over white, and that blue shows up really well over the white. And look what it does over the black. Now this really shows you, this is a good example of a duochrome color and how it differs from the iridescent. And surprisingly, over most of the other colors, it turns green. Over the blue, to me, it looks more like that Cabo blue, but over all the other colors, it looks more green. And it changes a little bit as you tilt the paper and look at it in different lights, which I'll show you at the end of this video. Now for the pattern, and it really looks green over the olive green, but look, it does change to blue over the cerulean blue. It's interesting to me that over the violet it turns more green. So you just have to test it over your favorite colors and just see what it does. And just finishing up with that Duochrome Cabo Blue. And now I'm going to try this Duochrome Cactus Flower. This is a color that I was very excited about because I just love purples, and this, when you take it out of the tube, looks like a really beautiful blue violet, and can't see the two colors so much on this one when you move it around on the palette, so we'll just have to see when we paint it on the page here. So here on the white, it actually looks kind of like a mauve, kind of like that iridescent ruby that I don't care for up above. Like I said, mauve is not my favorite color. But over black, it's just a beautiful blue violet, as it is over most of the other colors. It changes a little when you put it over different colors. It kind of varies between more of a red violet and a blue violet, which is really interesting to me, and I think this would be a fun color to paint with. You don't see it very well over the green, and a little better over the blue. As I said before, sometimes I think it's kind of nice to have subtle effect when you're painting something. Every once in a while you'd like to have a little pattern or something interesting going on, that little bit of iridescence, but you don't want it to just fly out at you. You'd like it to be a little more subtle and have people notice it as they look closer. Now this is interesting. It shows up really well over the yellow. And look at it compared to that interference lilac up above, which hardly shows up. So looking at our comparison here between interference, iridescent, and duochrome, a big difference I notice is that the interference colors really don't show up on white, and the iridescent and duochrome show up just fine on white. And of course the duochrome looks very different between white and black, actually changes colors. Looking at the interference colors, the blue changes a little bit as it goes over the other colors, as well as the lilac. They both, you can see that they're blue and lilac, but they do change according to which color they're over. Now this iridescent green really changes very little over the other colors. It remains pretty consistent and a little more opaque, whereas iridescent ruby seems a little more transparent and doesn't show up as well over some colors. The duochrome Cabo Blue, which turns green over the other colors, looks a lot like the iridescent green to me when it goes over. Doesn't really look a lot different. And the cactus flower changes to a blue violet, and you can see the other colors through pretty well. So now let's take this and move it around a little bit and look at it in the different lights. And still, to me, the greens, the Cabo Blue and the iridescent green, or iridescent jade, really look opaque, almost like a whole nother kind of paint over the top. Like it almost doesn't look like a translucent watercolor. It's still a little translucent, but compared to the others. The others are all nice and translucent, and the only color I really didn't care for was that iridescent ruby, and I think that's pretty subjective. Some people may really appreciate that color. And in another video that I'm going to do, post soon, I mix the iridescent ruby with another watercolor, quinacridone violet, and it becomes quite a beautiful color when you mix it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do give this a try at home. These Daniel Smith Luminescent paints cost about $10.30 a tube. So hopefully this will help you make a more knowledgeable and confident choice if you go to buy some for yourself. And now don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and stop by and check out my webpage, my Facebook page, or take a look at my Instagram account if you'd like to learn more about me, my art, and my children's book illustrations.